The Senate will please come to order. We will honor the colors. The Pledge of Allegiance will be led by Senator Manning.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
For our words this morning, from Albert Einstein, life is like riding a bicycle. To keep balance, you must keep moving. Courtesies of the Senate. Recognize Senator Bonham.
Colleagues, yesterday I brought to your attention that despite all of us working very hard, our staffs working hard, that I truly believe that there was someone that worked harder than everyone. And so I invited Heidi to join me on the floor this morning. Our legislative counsel, Heidi Elliott, has been drafting all the transportation bill amendment, every consideration that we've thrown at her, and has been here tirelessly throughout the weekend, holiday weekend, with other priorities in her personal life that she could have been attending to, and she gave it up to be here. And so I was hoping that we could just crush decorum today and give her a rousing round of applause to showcase our appreciation for the hard work that she's put forward. Would you please join me in giving courtesies to Heidi this morning? Thank you, Obi, for allowing that. I know rolling the dice, risking breaking decorum, but you know, this is important work that we do, but it really does. At the end of every session, we bring in LC, and we bring in LPRO, and we bring in LFO and LRO, and we bring in the volunteer plainclothes state troopers, we bring in the state troopers, we bring all the folks that keep this building going. We give special recognition to our staff, and it's always important that we remember what it takes for us to do this work. And this morning, Heidi personifies that, and she's just done tremendous work. Again, I selfishly, for us as a merry band of Republicans, you know, trying to put forward our voice, I didn't think what we asked her to do was going to be possible. I really didn't. I thought, oh my gosh, we're giving her an impossible task, and yet she did it. And so we have Senate Bill 1221, and it will never see the light of day, but I'm so proud of it. I'm so thankful. So that's why I wanted to give you the special recognition, because we would not have had that opportunity without you. So thank you again.
And Heidi, thank you so much. Your sacrifice is unmatched, and we offer our deepest courtesies and our profound gratitude for your incredible work and dedication to our democracy. Seeing no additional courtesies, the clerk will please call the roll.
Anderson, Bonham, Broadman, Campos, Frederick, Gelser-Bluin, Gerard, Golden, Gorsuch, Hayden, Jama, Lieber, Linthicum, Manning, McLean, Meek, Nash, Neron Mislin, Patterson, Pham, Brzezinski, Reynolds, Robinson, Brock Smith, Solman, Starr, Taylor, Thatcher, Weber, President Wagner.
Here. A quorum is present. Remonstrances. Seeing no one in the queue. Senator Robinson with remonstrances.
Unusual projects are fun. Part of the thrill is in sorting out unique complications. The last pipe organ we moved was from a small cathedral in Maryland. The cathedral, unfortunately, was being converted into apartments, and the sanctuary was on an old second floor which was unsafe for a scissors lift. Pipe organ chests are heavy. They can be lowered with ropes, but you must anchor the ropes to something. My brother Matthew managed to screw pulleys into the roof from the top of the organ chambers, 30 feet in the air. We then had to be very careful not to lose the rope as we took the organ apart because there was no easy way to put it back. It would have been fun to regild the Oregon Pioneer statue. Scaffolding has drawbacks, so we were thinking about a lift from the ground or possibly lifting it off the pedestal with a crane and then putting it back when it was done. The Capitol Rotunda would make a nice workroom. We could have hauled it inside and regilded it there. Imagine the positive publicity for the Senate if we were regilding our own statue as volunteers. It would have been a fantastic news story. As it stands, the Oregonian reports that the partial regilding cost the taxpayers is $234,375, of which only $9,110 is gold leaf. That is similar to many other state projects at about 5 to 10 times reasonable costs. This leaves everyone with obvious questions. Should we have waited? It looked fine from the ground. Should we be putting much thicker gold coating on the spots which wear down? The cost isn't driven by regolding or by the gold. Let's make it at least last. We can be sure, however, that nearly $235,000 is a ridiculous amount to charge Oregon taxpayers for adding a few ounces of gold to the statue. Thank you, Mr. President.
And thank you, Senator. Continuing under remonstrances, recognize Senator Gelser-Bluin.
Thank you, Mr. President. First, many thanks to the good senator. Often your remonstrances become part of our dinner conversation. So we had a great conversation about math and science education earlier this week, so thank you. Mr. President, I rise today, and this might be a little bit more of a courtesy, but I know we've been having really difficult conversations about ODOT, the system, accountability within that system. I also know that across the state, we have thousands of workers in our local transit offices, in ODOT, that are watching and waiting through these debates. And they have different perspectives. Some agree with this side of the aisle, some agree with the other side of the aisle, but all of them show up every day to do their work, and many of them have been waiting, wondering what is going to happen with their livelihoods. At the same time, they hear us talking about the challenges with ODOT. And I just wanted to take a moment while we're here on the floor to say to those workers, whether you are with the city, whether you are with a county, whether you are with the state, that when we talk about systems and system accountability, that is about government systems, and that I see the work that is being done every day by these workers that allows each of us to safely come here and recognize the stress that is sitting with each of those individuals and that hit to morale that comes from some of these important conversations that we are having here on this floor and in committee rooms. So colleagues, I hope that you will join me, and when you see a flag around the road, you see your transit driver, take an extra minute to say thank you. This has been an extraordinarily stressful time for those individuals and their families, and I hope that they know how appreciated they and their work are. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. Continuing under remonstrances, recognize Senator Golden.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to take a moment to underscore an element of this session that I found moving and that I think we need to remember, and it has to do with transit, public transportation. In the early moments of the session, we heard a suggestion that we could get ODOT straight and in fine shape if we focused just on the essentials and wouldn't need new revenue and didn't deal with any of the side frills. And presumably transit was one of those. It didn't make the essential list. And then a whole lot of people came into the Capitol who used transit and testified and made it clear what kind of lives they can and can't have without transit, how fundamentally important it is. And then over the weekend, I was listening to the committee hearing, and I heard across the aisle strong support for transit. We get it. We understand how essential it is to the Oregon way of life. And we were told, don't interpret our requirement for the sunset to remove the 0.1% increase in 2 years as any kind of opposition to transit. We support transit. We just need this time to find a more appropriate way to fund it. So I'm a little skeptical. I don't see a whole lot of proposals around here for new revenues that win support across the aisle. But if we can find that more appropriate source, great, problem solved. If we can't, we have a commitment to these people. What we can't do in 2 years is say, we looked, we tried, we looked for more appropriate source, didn't materialize. So sorry, you're out of luck. We expressly talked about our understanding of how essential transit is. We said we would fund it. If we change how we fund it, that's fine, but let's not abandon our fellow Oregonians, roughly a third of them, who basically depend on transit to live in Oregon. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Continuing under remonstrances, recognize Senator McLean.
Thank you. Colleagues, I was encouraged to continue a conversation after my remonstrance on Monday by my friend, the senator from Southern Oregon, Ashland Medford. In a conversation, of course, there is a discourse. But I looked up this word, false dichotomy. This is the definition of a false dichotomy. A logical fallacy where an argument presents only two options or sides as the only possibilities, when in reality, more options exist. This oversimplification is a manipulative tactic used to force a choice between two possible extremes or to prevent consideration of an alternative solution or a middle ground. The governor called us into session under a logical fallacy that there were only two options. Either give us more taxes or your roads will be unsafe and people will be hurt, if not die. That was it. That's called a logical fallacy. A logical fallacy is used often in debates, it's used in arguments, and often to hide the fact that you don't want a middle ground. You don't want a conversation. You don't want a discussion, so you use a logical fallacy. And of course, this chamber participated in that logical fallacy when it didn't allow a middle ground to even be introduced for a conversation, to even be introduced. So here we are, and now we're delayed. But at the end of the day, the logical fallacy remains. There is a middle ground. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. Continuing under remonstrances, recognize Senator Brock-Smith.
Thank you, Mr. President, colleagues. I rise today because I won't be here on the 17th, as I'll be at CSG West, co-chairing over our wildfire and disaster preparedness committee meetings. And so I just wanted to speak to what we're doing here and give prayers and thoughts to our colleague for a speedy recovery. And hopefully give thoughts to the rest of my colleagues on where we're going with not just public transit, but ODOT in general. It's been called a Band-Aid, but I see this as as not quite a Band-Aid, but a situation where we're going to be not having a true bipartisan conversation when it comes to transportation and project investments. Rose Quarters quadrupled in price. I agree with my colleague that public transit is critically important, but it was funded prior to 2017 without a payroll tax that this legislation would double on Oregonians, many of which can't afford it. And as I spoke on Friday, this is going to negatively hurt my constituents in my rural communities greater than those in my urban colleague counterpart communities, because they have to travel farther for larger goods and services than those in the urban areas. And so I'm very concerned, colleagues, and I hope that we have been given some time to reflect on Senate Bill 1221 that we presented and what it can do to reallocate existing resources to bridge the gap that we need to get to 2026 February session. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Under remonstrances, recognize Leader Bonham.
So just real quickly, I got to update the stack. It's important that you actually read testimony because Oregonians are not without a sense of humor and they're not without a little bit of snark. testimony in support of House Bill 3992. Thank you for allowing me to submit testimony in support of House Bill 3992. This bill is a shining example of why the Oregon Legislative Assembly deserves admiration. Nobody, and I mean nobody, can transform taxpayers' blood, sweat, and tears into an all-you-can-eat government buffet quite like this. Truly, it's an art form. So I'm not going to read the rest, but I would recommend that you do read through the testimony. Oregonians, by and large, oppose this bill. They don't want us to raise taxes. They do want us to come up with a compromise solution. They want us to be good stewards of their money. And I think we owe it to the folks that have weighed in to give their testimony full consideration so that we can find the person that clicked oppose only to be snarky that may have supported it, or that clicked support only to be snarky to tell you why they vehemently oppose it. So here's the stack, or please peruse it at your leisure.
Thank you, Senator. Continuing under remonstrances, recognize Senator Pham.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, I wasn't planning to speak today, but I am inspired by the conversation today. And I also want to thank the people who came out to testify and educated me about even some of the impacts of our transportation policy on their lives. You know, I think it's interesting when we talk about tax policy. Our colleague on the House side had a great metaphor. He said, asking people if they want to raise their taxes is like asking them if they'd prefer a Marionberry pie or a root canal. And I thought that was really apt. I think everyone, of course, would prefer a Marionberry pie. But this conversation is really forcing us to have a robust dialogue about what we're willing to pay for and the impacts of those decisions, not on all of us as the general public, but also conversations about who we're willing to prioritize. Yesterday, or the other day in committee, we heard from some of the most vulnerable Oregonians. We heard from veterans who depend on public transit in Klamath County with bus service to get to the VA hospital, a bus full of veterans to get to the VA hospital. We heard from folks who are visually impaired who said, you know, I am able to get a job and be a contributing member of society, pay my taxes. I'm able to go to healthcare, go to the grocery store because of public transit. And we heard from workers who said, because I can't afford the $12,000 a year it costs to own and maintain a car, the cost of car insurance, of maintenance, of parking, of all the other maintenance and repair fees that it costs to own and maintain a car. And public transit investments are what allows me to reduce the cost of living for me and allow me to pay for all the food and expenses for my family. So I just want to really express appreciation to the folks who came out on Labor Day to testify and really share their stories, because I think it really helps educate all of us about the impacts on their community.
Thank you, Senator. Continuing under the order of business, messages, reports from committees, propositions and motions, recognize Senator Jama.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that HCR 51, HB 3991, and HB 3992 be taken from their places on today's third reading calendar and be placed on the Wednesday, September 17th calendar.
Senator Jama moves that HCR 51, House Bill 3991, and House Bill 3992 be taken from their places on today's third reading calendar and be placed on the Wednesday, September 17th calendar. Senator Jama, to your motion.
It will be a better day to hear these measures in terms of the calendar schedule.
Thank you, Senator. Non-debatable motion. If there is no objection, so ordered. Action on executive appointments requiring Senate confirmation. Introduction and first reading of Senate measures. Second reading of Senate measures. Third reading of Senate measures. First reading of House measures. Second reading of House measures. I'll stand at ease. Okay. The Senate will come to order under third reading of House measures. Other business of the Senate. Announcements. Seeing no one in the queue for announcements, without objection, the Senate is adjourned until 10 a.m. Friday, September 5th.